cheap Mercedes is not automatically a bad car. It becomes dangerous when the purchase price hides a system nobody has checked. In the next 11 minutes, we will rank 7 bargains by the risk stack: air suspension, hydraulics, brake electronics, engine coverage, and the records that prove what was repaired. This is a screening guide, not a claim that every example fails. The rule is simple: see it cold, scan every module, verify the VIN, and buy the history before you buy the badge. For the ranking, use a simple rule. Every used luxury car has ordinary wear items: tires, brakes, fluids, bushings, and batteries. The risk stack begins when a car adds a second layer of specialized systems, then a third. Air suspension can be reliable when leaks are repaired early, but it becomes expensive when a tired compressor, valve block, and leaking strut are left together. A hydraulic roof or active body control system adds pumps, lines, accumulators, sensors. Dense electronics add another diagnostic challenge. One low battery or communication fault can create a dashboard full of unrelated symptoms. That is why a short test drive is not enough. We want a cold start, a scan of every module, a lift inspection, a road test over different surfaces, and proof of past work. The best buyer does not ask, "What is the cheapest one listed?" They ask, "Which example has the clearest history and the smallest unknowns?" Number 7 is the W220 S500, the 1998 to 2002 S-Class sedan. It delivered flagship comfort with airmatic air suspension, and some versions used even more sophisticated active suspension hardware. That comfort is the reason buyers still love it, but it is also the first thing to test. Leave the car parked overnight and compare the ride height at every corner. Nose down or corner down stance suggests a leak or a system that is working too hard to compensate. On the road, listen for a compressor that runs too often, and watch for warning messages that appear only after the car warms up. Then scan the suspension module with Mercedes-capable equipment instead of relying on a generic code reader. The body and interior may look beautiful while the hidden bill grows underneath. Buy one only with service invoices, a healthy battery, and enough room in the budget for suspension diagnosis. A cheap W220 with no records is not a cheap flagship. It is an unanswered question. At number 6 is the R230 SL500 Roadster. This car combines a folding metal roof with active body control, commonly called ABC, so it can feel like 2 complex machines in one beautiful package. During inspection, operate the roof several times from cold. Listen for slow movement, pump noise, or a cycle that pauses halfway. Look around the hydraulic lines and the roof mechanism for dampness, and check whether the trunk and cabin stay dry after a wash. ABC deserves its own test. The car should sit level, respond cleanly, and show no suspension warning after a proper drive. A seller who has warmed the car before you arrive may be hiding a cold start or leak symptom, so arrive early and insist on seeing the first start. The R230 can be rewarding when maintained, but a neglected roof and neglected suspension can compete for the same repair budget. The ownership rule is simple: never buy the options until you have inspected the hardware that makes those options work. Number 5 is the W211 E500. Especially early cars fitted with Sensotronic brake control, or SBC. This is where a buyer must separate internet fear from evidence. Mercedes and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration documented a recall affecting certain vehicles, so the correct action is not to assume every E500 has a failure. The correct action is to verify the VIN, confirm whether the campaign applies, and confirm that the remedy was completed. Ask for the repair record and have a specialist scan the brake system for stored faults. On the road, the pedal should feel consistent, the warning lamps should stay off, and the car should stop straight without unusual pump cycling. Even when a recall has been completed, normal brake wear and age-related electrical problems still matter. The W211 is a brilliant long-distance car when the records are clear. It becomes a risky bargain when a seller cannot explain its brake history. For safety systems, documentation is part of the vehicle, not optional paperwork. Number 4 is the 2006 to 2007 R350, and the key phrase here is engine number. Certain M272 engines were covered by Mercedes communications concerning balance shaft sprocket wear, but coverage and applicability depend on the exact engine range and vehicle history. That means a model year guess is not enough. Ask for the engine number, check the relevant documentation, and have a qualified shop listen to a genuine cold start. Warning lights, rough running, camshaft correlation faults, or a history of timing-related repairs deserve careful investigation. The R-Class also carries the weight and equipment of a large family vehicle, so brakes, cooling, suspension, and transmission service can add to the total. This is a good example of why a headline such as "Known Bad Engine" is too simple. The real buying question is whether this VIN and this engine fall inside a documented risk range, and whether the previous owner addressed it. If nobody can answer those questions, the low purchase price is not doing you a favor. At number 3 is the early GL 450, chassis X164. A full-size luxury SUV brings a heavier workload to every system, more mass for the brakes, more weight for the suspension, and more equipment to keep cool and calibrated. The air suspension should rise and settle evenly, hold its height when parked, and avoid a compressor that runs every few minutes. Mercedes service information also matters for the early V8 family, so check the engine number and maintenance record instead of relying on a generic forum list. During the inspection, look for uneven tire wear, coolant residue, driveline vibration, and evidence that the vehicle has been used to tow or carry heavy loads. Scan the transfer case, suspension, and body modules, not just the engine computer. The GL can be a superb family vehicle, but the combination of size, air suspension, and luxury electronics makes neglect expensive. If the seller cannot provide a cold start and a specialist inspection, walk away from the discount. Number 2 is the W200 for C63 AMG, because a performance bargain deserves a performance inspection. The hand-built M156 V8 is the star, and Mercedes service guidance discusses startup noise involving cam adjusters and valve play components on affected engines. That is why the cold start is non-negotiable. Do not accept a video recorded after the engine has warmed up. Listen for the first second, check the oil level and service intervals, and scan for timing or misfire faults. Then inspect the cooling system, differential, brakes, tires, and previous track use. A C63 that has been maintained can be a memorable car. A C63 that has been driven hard without the records to match can convert every exciting option into a negotiation point. The badge does not tell you how the car was treated. A specialist who knows the M156 can often identify clues that a general inspection misses. So spend money on the inspection before you spend it on the car. Our number 1 is the W221 S550, the 2005 to 2009 S-Class. It is not number 1 because every car fails. It is number 1 because the flagship combines airmatic comfort, powerful electronics, and a large number of control modules in one aging platform. A weak battery can trigger misleading warnings, but a battery replacement alone does not explain a car that keeps losing height or communication. Check the charging system, scan every module, inspect the air suspension overnight, and confirm that the doors, seats, cameras, climate system, and Coleman functions all work. Look underneath for leaks and around the trunk for water intrusion. The service history should show regular fluids, suspension work, and electrical diagnosis rather than a trail of temporary resets. A W221 can be astonishing value when its history is complete. Without that history, you are buying a network of unknowns. For this car, the smartest luxury feature is a paper trail. Ranking is useful, but the individual example matters more than the number. The worst car is usually the one with several small unknowns stacked together. It has no cold start proof, no service invoices, a weak battery, mismatched tires, warning lights that were recently cleared, and a seller who says the specialist inspection is unnecessary. Each clue may be survivable alone. Together, they tell you the maintenance system has been deferred, that a purchase ceiling before you shop, then keep a reserve for the first year. Compare 2 or 3 cars in the same market rather than falling in love with the cheapest listing. Ask the seller specific questions. When was the suspension repaired? When was the battery replaced? Which fluids were changed? And which campaigns were completed by VIN? Vague answers are data. So are unusually clean engine bays, fresh warning light resets, and a car that arrives already warm. Your goal is not to prove the seller dishonest. Your goal is to make the unknowns visible before they become invoices. Here is the inspection sequence to save in your phone. First, see the car cold and check the starting voltage. Second, walk around it before driving. Ride height, tire wear, fluid traces, body gaps, and water in the trunk. Third, scan every module with Mercedes-capable equipment and save the report before anyone clears codes. Fourth, test every expensive feature: air suspension, roof, seats, climate, cameras, parking sensors, and infotainment. Fifth, drive long enough to reach operating temperature, then repeat the checks. Finally, put the car on a lift and inspect leaks, bushings, brake lines, underbody damage, and previous repairs. Ask the shop for a written priority list. Safety now, reliability soon, and cosmetic later. A good inspection is not a promise that nothing will fail. It is a map of what you are buying. If a seller refuses a specialist inspection, the answer is already clear. The best deal is the one you can understand before you sign. So should you avoid these Mercedes models? Not automatically. You should avoid buying a complicated luxury car as if it were a simple appliance. The W220, R230, W211, R350, GL450, C63 and W221 can all deliver the comfort, character, or performance that made them special. Can also punish a buyer who confuses a low price with low ownership cost. By the documented example, verify recalls and service coverage by VIN or engine number. Pay for a cold start inspection, a complete module scan, and a lift check. Keep a realistic reserve and choose a shop that understands Mercedes systems instead of guessing with parts. If this guide saved you from one bad bargain, subscribe for the next evidence-driven ownership breakdown. Tell us which model you want examined next, and remember, in used luxury, you are not just buying the car. You are buying the maintenance history that comes with it.